Welcome to the Israel Guys. We're so happy to be back here with the Land of Israel Network. We believe in a world of anti-Israel, growing propaganda, and growing rising Jew hatred. It is very important that you are directly connected to the land and people of Israel. I'm Luke Hilton, here with Joshua Waller, and so happy to be back with Jeremy Gimpel, Ari Abramowitz. It's been 1 month, an entire month, and a lot has happened. If you see me or Ari like swaying or we're like slurring our words, it's because we just spent 25 hours each on a boat crossing the Mediterranean Sea from Cyprus back to Israel. And yes, that was the only way to get back that we could find after being stuck for 12 days in like Cyprus and Greece and Europe and America. So absolutely crazy. You guys know the big news a couple of weeks was that the Israel summit was canceled. You saw our live streams from Texas, but that quickly became old news because
that happened 10 years ago.
We were literally on an airplane flying back to Israel, and Israel decided to attack Iran, as they should have. It was just very interesting timing, and Jeremy just happened to nail it perfectly to get back home right before the attacks happened. And Josh, of course, never left Israel. So,
Ari can tell you lots of stories about how proud he was with my decision.
We will forever hold against him. But the rest of us were stuck, and there's definitely stories about fishing boats crossing the Mediterranean. But let's just run through kind of some quick news, right? Obviously, all that. And then we have, after Israel attacks Iran, and everybody's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? All the woke right commentators that World War III is going to break out and thousands of American soldiers are going to die. Then Trump just overnight decides to attack Iran's nuclear facilities with B-2 bombers. And then...
Is that the first time anybody's ever been attacked with a B-2? Like dropping bombs with a B-2 bomber?
I think it is, maybe.
I mean, from what I understand, they actually created this type of weapon, not the bomber itself, but the MOP, right? The ordnance, the penetrating ordnance that goes deep into the earth.
The bunker
exactly
busters.
Built for this attack. They've been working on this attack for a decade.
Did they tell Carl, what's his name?
Tucker
Carlson?
Yeah.
Did they tell him that they've been working on this for years?
Right. I think Trump's like, come on, I got this thing. I got to use it already, you know?
Right. So then Trump attacks Iran, and then Trump calls a ceasefire, and then Iran breaks a ceasefire, and so then Israel's responding to a bunch of people killed in Beersheba. And then Trump yells at Bibi with some very choice language, makes them turn their planes around, supposedly. And now the war's over with Iran. But the big question is the war actually over? So okay, I think that's a good place to start. I want to hear from each of you.
Could I usually let you be at the wheel, but after just being in a ship for 25 hours,
you're kind of swaying over that. No.
Yeah, maybe let's just sort of take it chronologically and get there at the end, because there's so many things that really need to be discussed. So perhaps in a cohesive way, let's try to do that, right? Because Summit was canceled. We don't need to have such high resolution. But in the end of the day, I ended up making it back to Israel on a boat that was by evangelical, pro-Israel, Jew-loving Christians. They were tired. They wanted to move to Israel. They said, no, Israel is for the Jews. We're going to move to Cyprus with the hope and the faith that the day will come that we will be able to help Israel from here. And for no fee, they refused to accept money. They said God pays better than anyone else could. No ulterior motives. They had no desire to proselytize. They just were bringing Jews to the land. And that is just an unbelievably beautiful thing that is almost like our program here. You know, Captain Jack and Skipper Debbie are an example, a manifestation of the beauty that's coming from here. And you, on the other hand, were saved by a Jew.
An Israeli secular Jew, from Haifa, on a fishing boat. The engine quit in the middle of the Mediterranean, but we won't get into that.
we won't get into that, but I just want to put a bookmark here.
But I think it is an amazing thing. Yeah.
Invite the hundreds of thousands of viewers or whoever is watching the show. I know definitely my mom is, right? That when the prophet Zechariah says, V'nilvu goyim rabim al Hashem bi'u, the righteous of the nations will attach themselves to the house of Israel on that day. What does it mean to attach yourself? A German that hit a Jew in World War II ended up in Auschwitz. Casting your fate. So you saying, I am so thirsty to come back, I will do anything to come back to the land of Israel. If that's not attaching yourself to the house of Israel, and then it is a Jew that brings you here, but what are the words that the prophet Zechariah says? V'hayuli la'am. There's a reason I was saved by evangelical Christians and you were saved by a Jew, to show that there's a new nation There's something new that is being birthed here that is really bringing us together. I still don't know the depth, what it's all about. I'm sure there are prophecies. Like, I'm just reading through
Isn't there
prophecies
prophecies
now.
about like Jews coming home on boats, on ships?
Isaiah chapter 49.
Obviously you weren't making Aliyah, but
Isaiah chapter 49 is one of the most beautiful. Behold, I will lift up my hands to the nations and raise my banners to the people, and they shall bring your sons in their arms, and your daughters shall be carried on their shoulders. I mean, that is just, in those days, 10 men from the nations will take horn for the garment of the Jew and say, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you.
The only part it missed was jump on your boat and bring.
Well, no, but when I said to Captain Jack, I said, wow, it's after all the work that we have been doing to reach out to the Christian world and to like build these bridges, and I'm being saved by a Christian. I never thought I would say I've been saved by a Christian. And he's like, but from all the light that you guys give it, the Israel guys that have lit us up and helped us understand our connection, who is really saved who?
Right.
And there is not to say we'll come with us, but they're taking us here. Anyways, the point is that I think that we're so in the midst of redemption happening right now. Yes, it's not playing out the way that I anticipated or thought. I think a lot of Jews yesterday, a lot of us yesterday I was really disappointed in myself. It was one of the most confusing and disorienting days of my life because on the one hand, we saw these miracles of God that we can enumerate here possibly later when we get there. And on the other hand, we didn't really finish the war. And instead of God getting the glory, Trump got the glory. Like, what's going on here? It's a very disorienting and confusing day for many people. We went from Armageddon, apocalypse to school's back, work's back, like that.
with lights, the airport's open, flights are open,
Immediate. It's so there's a lot. So anyways, we could get to that, but I just thought it was important to touch on that point about how you got back, how I got back.
Well, the funny thing is, like, everybody I ran into on my boat ride over was just thought we were nuts. It was myself and my daughter and my brother and sister-in-law, and they were just like, why are you going to Israel? Like, you're not Israeli, you're not Jewish. Like, you're crazy. Like, I'm taking Israelis out of Israel. Not obviously most Israelis are coming back, but there's some people trying to get out, and go other places. He's just like, the boat captain kept looking. He's like, you're crazy. Like, why are you even here? Like,
it's fascinating what's happening around this table and what happened with the boats, like you said, because there's that redemptive thing that's happening with the people that are attaching themselves to Israel. But then there's the same war that's rising on the outside, because we also see right now a big rise in Christians that are hating Israel, that are your Tucker Carlsons and those, Candace Owens. Like we talked briefly before the show, we were talking about it. Boy, do we have a war on our hands within the Christian world, opposite of what we're saying. Like, there's redemption, and then there's the fight against it, right? And sometimes you have the same players. Like, what's going on here? Where you have the people that are making choices that align with redemptive process of building up Israel, and then you're making people that say they believe in God but are making a very godless choice of standing against God's people, standing against God's land. So I just throw that out there to say,
I think the only way you can really understand that, though, is by understanding. You need to look at it through a spiritual prism. A religious. Don't listen to the context of the superficial presentation of their arguments. Understand that under the surface is where it's really all happening. I just saw this debate that's raging in the theological Christian world about really reviving replacement theology and arguing for replacement theology from a theological level. And I couldn't help but watch that and say, like, this is the back programming of you hear Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Steve Bannon, that's the front, and that's the presentation of the website to the world. But the binary programming in the C++ is this debate that is being revived about replacement theology. And I think that if anything, that is part of what this show is about, is showing what's really happening on the deeper theological level.
The way you take that apart is it's been now 625 days of
29 days.
29 days of this war. And that breeds anti-Semitism. That Jewish weakness invites replacement theology. The fact that we weren't able to finish the job off with Hamas in Gaza, even with Khamenei in Iran, the fact that we haven't actually just definitively shown that Israel is the chosen people kind of brings and invites replacement theology, saying, who are these Jews and what are they doing? So Jewish strength is the cure to anti-Semitism. It is the cure to replacement theology, because reality shows that we are blessed. I mean, there have been 45,000 missiles, rockets, and drones that have been shot onto Israel since October 7th.
45,000? I didn't know that. That's wild.
Since October 7th. And so you just imagine, like, the stats were that every military, everyone was thinking there were going to be thousands of dead Israelis from this attack in Iran. And there was like, I mean, everyone was a tragedy, but it was just a handful.
Jeremy, can we focus in on this a little bit more? I want you to keep going because we heard about, I feel like me and you have our show. Luke and Ari got their show because they got their boats. We live something completely different. And I know it was harder for you guys, and I won't ever say that because it really was. And I feel like you and I both in our Zionism, it was an honor to be here in the land of Israel, and you guys really wanted to be here with all your hearts.
I'm not sure about harder. I mean, there's two different kinds of hard because my wife and children who are here definitely had it harder. I will say that.
Right, because of our disconnection from them.
Right.
We had it harder than them. I don't care.
Ari's on it.
We did. I was so envious of them being in their bomb shelters with their families.
But Jeremy, I want to take a moment here to update everybody on what we literally lived through. We talked about what happened on the outsides of Israel as people were literally floods of Israelis were trying to get back into Israel. And you made an amazing point the other day.
The only thing I'll say is the war was over within 24 hours of me getting off the boat, and I made it into the bomb shelter 4 times in that 24 hours.
So maybe it ended because of you, but just so you know, I was so terrified of the war beginning while I was gone. That's why I never travel. And they say when you have a fear, you invite it. So because of me, this whole thing happened.
There you have it, folks.
See, I told you they got their show.
I don't want to interrupt your thing, but I just want to say, I just want to read, this all happened under your watch, okay? Yep. 550 missiles, 1,000 drones, 31 impacts in populated areas, 28 people killed, almost all civilians, 3,238 hospitalized, including dozens seriously wounded and over 100 suffering from trauma, 21,000 alerts. 9,000 people displaced from their homes. That's just, no, you can.
So what that looked like, Jeremy, for you and I was running back and forth to bomb shelter. You have a bomb shelter in your home. I don't. We were running every night, grabbing the children, the wife, everybody to the car, driving.
But you lived in the bomb shelter for a little while, right?
And then once it started happening 3 and 4 times a night, it was just impossible. You couldn't do that 3 times, 4 times a night. We literally we slept in the bomb shelters for the first 5 days of the war. That was dramatic.
Where, in Har Bracha?
Up in the community, yeah. And then after it started slowing down, where it was just once or twice a day, we were like, okay, we could try to do this. And so then we literally got up 3 a.m. multiple, like the rest of the war was like a 3 a.m. and then again in the early morning hours of the morning, some 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we would jump in the car, run to the shelter, boom, 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 outside. 10 minutes later, you come back out.
Here?
Wait, can we talk about the stuff y'all found? Because it's not just shrapnel anymore that you found.
I'll get some of the guys on the production team to run and bring this huge thing in that we
is that close by?
It's just outside the door of the office building. Literally, we'll pull this into the shot.
I mean, you definitely can't click off now, guys. You got to see this.
This fell
y'all haven't seen
right outside the office door. We'll bring it in a minute, but literally, we have tons of shrapnel that landed here. Tons. I don't know about you, Jeremy.
No, we didn't have any shrapnel, not at least around us.
We have. I mean, look at this. I've got some stuff right here. This fell. This is just stuff laying around us here. This piece.
Watch out there.
You in the head. Yeah. That's just what I read.
I think that's from your Can-Am.
No, literally this stuff fell.
It's a muffler.
No, Jeremy, just to correct what you said,
and hundreds of pieces.
We have a number of Arab villages around us. Some of them are friendlier and some of them are more jihadist. One of the most toxic jihadist villages had a direct hit, right? Seir had a direct hit right there. I think it killed 4 people. Right, it wasn't. I don't think it was the missile. I think it was a shot out of the sky.
Okay, this
you get the honors, Josh.
Yeah, this literally fell right outside this door right here.
Wow.
Make sure people can hear you on your mic there.
Oh wow, it's still hot.
Well, it's because it was outside. Still steaming. But literally, and so everybody that's worried, we did have the police and the special teams check this to make sure.
Yeah,
wait. To be clear, no. To be clear,
we want this to go viral.
They called the police, and the police had Nate check it.
Yeah, and they went through a procedure.
They didn't come out
and
okay,
worked
so
through.
Nate checked it. Wow. Okay.
According to protocol.
All right, let's get that out of here.
Yeah, boom.
Don't worry, it's still loaded.
But literally, this is what we went through. So, Jeremy, what did you go through?
Well, I'll tell you, I feel like whatever you and I went through was a little bit what all of Israel went through.
Yeah.
And when you're in a bomb shelter and you're hearing booms all around you, because we heard booms all around us. Either it's by direct hits in the Arab village next to us, or it's the Iron Dome that's doing its business. It forces everyone to ask themselves the question: am I living a good life? Mm-hmm. has what I've done up until now, has it been enough? Why am I alive? It made every Israeli really do, in Hebrew we'd say a cheshbon nefesh, a real soul accounting for what their life is about. And I really feel like that's what this war was all about, because so many Israelis, they're just waking up, they're going to work, they're going to the beach, they're coming home, they're just living their life. And all of a sudden, multiple times a day and multiple times a night, they're in their bomb shelters not knowing if the rocket's going to hit their building or not. And it really forced them to go inside and fix themselves just to have that retrospection.
You know, there's stats on that. Before the war, I think it was 17% of Israel's young people were keeping Shabbat, meaning a lot of Israel honors Shabbat. They'll light some candles, but keeping Shabbat, as you guys know much more than I, it's very stringent. I just saw something that said 50% of Israel's young people are now keeping Shabbat. Keeping.
Wow.
Yeah, just the boat that I was on for 25 hours. You're on a boat for 25 hours, you get to know people well. Like I was telling stories and they were like, keep them coming. People don't usually say, keep them coming, Ari.
Well,
zoom in, high resolution, we got time.
But you also have to turn your phone off for 25 hours too. So, you gotta
that's true. It was
go back to ancient forms of
Shabbat
entertainment.
Is 25 hours. Shabbat, it was like a Shabbat at sea. There was no access to any, internet or phone or anything. No electricity, really. No electricity. We didn't even have electricity on our boat. So we really got to know each other. And these Israelis, like, she woke up in the morning and she's praying. She had introduced herself as secular. She prays. She keeps the Sabbath. She keeps the laws of kosher. She keeps the marital purity laws.
Can I just
America,
clarify?
She's considered ultra-Orthodox.
Can I clarify for people in America? Well, Christianity in general, it's the opposite of what how Christians identify. People that go to church on Easter and Christmas Eve, they usually will tell you they're Christian.
Yeah.
In Israel, people will tell you they're secular, but they're like more devout in their faith than most Christians are. And I think people need to understand that. It's pretty much the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that way. So go ahead.
No, that's all I had on that, was just that literally we have
So
Israel
what was this, a 12-day war?
becoming a godly nation, like out of what you were saying, Jeremy, of out of the depths of this cry of wait, where am I at? Do I know God? I need God, because we're going through crazy times.
Can we just go back chronologically? I sort of want to take us through here, because I'm not going to go so much into my perspective. When I saw Thursday night, when I was in Philadelphia by my cousins, it says Israel attacked Iran, I ran to the bathroom and I was retching over the toilet, and I called my wife. I said, immediately go here. And to me, it was like, I'm never going to see my family again, because this could easily deteriorate. I've been saying to everyone, when the gates shut, the gates shut. And I'm like, what are the chances I'm like on this side of it when that's been my message? Yeah. And so clearly it was my spiritual Achilles heel. I don't want to get so into that. But, when Israel attacked, there was also still a part of me that was so proud that Bibi did it.
Yeah.
He did it. So many people are like, Bibi's a coward. He would never do it. There should be hat companies that need to be created in Israel for all the people that have to eat their hats, that have been saying for so long that Bibi would never do that. And he did it. And I can't help but to feel like Bibi is unique in that he's actually following the nation. The nation is waking up. The nation is a lion that is being roused. And Bibi is feeling that and seeing that and being taken with that. He named the war a lion that is being roused. And I just read one of the ultra-Orthodox Knesset members said he sat down with Bibi, and Bibi, the first thing he said to him after this, he said, we've had a lot of help. America helped us different, but the number one help we had was, he said the word siyata dishmaya, help from the creator of heaven and earth.
A couple weeks, I've seen more images of like Bibi praying at the kotel, putting on like tefillin, and
it's a real change of spiritual heart and aligning. If anything, it's because he knows more than anyone what the estimations were on the most conservative side of how many Israelis were supposed to die, what the price would be for the country. He knew that, and he sees what the reality is compared to what everyone was expecting by any rational metric. And he's like, clearly God is with us.
Well, imagine what a fixing it is. That in the Torah portion of the spies that came back with an evil report, there were 150,000 Israelis trying their best to get in, either by boat or by plane. And in the same Torah portion, the people of Israel said, oh, we're like grasshoppers, and we're like grasshoppers in their eyes. And now we became the rising lion, and we actually saw ourselves for who we are. And then from like a secular leadership, Bibi just the other day said that he had prayed Shema Israel, that he'd like really prayed, not just putting in like a verse of the Bible into the wall, but actually connecting to God in prayer. And I've never seen a prime minister speak about tefillah, speak about prayer in such a way. Like there is a transformation that's happening from the people of Israel, the leadership of Israel. Like we are watching the transition happen before our eyes.
So get back to what you were saying, Ari, a little bit, and let's just kind of walk through. This was a 12-day war, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say is I was kind of
Is this going to go down in history as a 12-day war?
I think it will go down in history as the 12-day battle.
Yeah, I don't think it's a war. It was like an operation.
It's kind of what I led off with today, and too. It's like the question is, what is our analysis of this war, and is the war over?
So the reason I say it's a battle and not a war is because a war has a resolution. World War II ended. This war, I think the reason that so many people are conflicted, and I had this yesterday, I was in a funk, a real funk, because I felt so ungrateful. God did all of these wonderful miracles. I'm like, why am I not on the ground thanking God for them? And I feel like it's because I saw Israel come in, and through Israel, God was glorifying his name. It was so clear. October 7th, there were Arabs and jihadists in flip-flops and hang gliders coming in and decimating and raping and torturing. And now in the eyes of the world, God is using the vehicle of the armies of Israel to bring this massive Goliath down to their knees. And right as we were about to cut off Agag's head, right, then in swoops America. And by the way, I have gratitude to Trump. I think he's an incredible leader. I have no negativity towards Trump, only positivity and gratitude. On the other hand, it's almost like the glory that should have gone to God instead was misplaced and redirected.
Well, at the same time, Trump said publicly that he thanks God, that he loves God,
right?
And then Pete Hegseth said all the glory should go to God. So even if they got the glory, they immediately deflected it.
No,
and so
I mean, he said those words, and I
good as a leader of another nation could be, as far as giving glory and honor to God. I think we have to tip our hats and be like, listen, there is a relatively righteous leadership within America now.
Okay, but at the same time, he said, Israel, he used the F word. He said, you just get back in your planes and you fly by. We were downgraded to the assisting, it's almost like the wealthy American Jew that pays wonderfully for his tithes to have a Torah scroll written in a synagogue. And for over a year, the scribe is sitting from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. writing the Torah scroll. And then that wealthy Jew comes and writes the last two letters and gets all the credit. Those were an important two letters of those B-2 bombers that he wrote. But let's not forget the reason that he went in, because it wasn't clear. The ministers in Israel are saying it wasn't clear that he was going to be with us. We said, we're going to war with or without you. And I think Trump likes to win. And when he saw the decimation that the armies of Israel did to Iran, he said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do this thing and finish it off. And so that's great. But the glory should be going to the God of Israel and not to him. But then to weaponize that, what he did, to weaponize it and say, no, Israel, you have to end this war.
That's tactics, though. Right. Couldn't you say that as tactics? Because even look at it. They got their own missiles launched at their own bases. I feel like it doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't think it makes any sense to you either. But in a world of tactics, you're like, we just decimated you. We're going to clear a path here. It makes zero sense to me. I don't get it. If superpower, I'd be like, you're not bombing an air base, and that's not happening. You're not gonna hit a U.S. base, and you're not gonna bomb a place. You're not gonna shoot rockets at Israel after the ceasefire. You do that, now we're back on. But in a way, I believe they're orchestrating this to feel like giving them a little win holds it, because otherwise everybody it's almost like World War I. World War II came back up. I mean, like you didn't let them. They didn't have any self-worth. They're gonna come back and punch you as soon as they get strong enough. And in a way, I feel like it was tactics of saying
it was a terrible tactic.
A terrible tactic. I agree.
Tactic, because what you need to have done,
but it was a tactic, right?
Crush them until the white flag comes up.
That's right.
Meaning they just
that's what he said.
Posted a victory parade that Iran is presenting itself as if it won the war. America stopped. And so who won this war? And when you define the enemy as the nuclear reactors or the ballistic missiles, that's not the enemy.
Well, I'm just remembering now.
The enemy is the regime. The enemy is jihad. Yeah. And we didn't take out the regime. We didn't stop the jihad. We didn't actually make them raise the white flag. So we knocked out their nuclear plants, but the nuclear plants weren't the enemy.
Exactly. And I remember Trump said every day.
The tunnels.
Right.
It's not the tunnels. It's Hamas. It's
Do you remember at the beginning of the war, Trump said over and over and over, total surrender. That was his line.
Right. They didn't surrender. They never surrendered.
There was no surrender.
No.
And when you finish with bombing a U.S. airbase, that didn't sound like surrender to me. Is that a white flag?
We have to have a biblical perspective as a biblical nation in our biblical land, and it's happened again. Saul went to war with Amalek, and just that leader, the Agag, the king, the one king, he's the one that they let live. Khamenei, we just let him live. You know how you actually pronounce Khamenei in Persian? It's not Khamenei, it's Khamenei. Haman.
Really?
Haman.
Really?
It is Haman. It is that ancient Amalekite nation, and we let the leader live again.
Yeah, but is he alive? You know, that's the debate right now, right? Because nobody's seen or heard from him in a week.
Okay, whether he's alive or not, the fact that Israel did not finish him with a clear, concise, victory. And that's why when America entered this war, my stomach dropped. It dropped not only because I knew what that would mean for the Tucker Carlsons of the world and the potential fallout for American Jewry that are going to be everyone's going to say AIPAC, and they're pushing America to fight Israel's wars, and there's going to be a global war, and it could have gone in that direction. But also now the glory that should have gone to Israel, that we just did this massive miracle, is going to be diluted and diffused. And really, so in my mind, okay, even if it's going to go a little bit longer, even if it takes a little bit longer, let's do this on our own. I would have liked to see Bibi say, Trump, incredible that you want to come in for this. This is something we need to do on our own, and we could have done it, and we can do it.
So let's walk through the first, let's walk through the 12 days of the war a little bit. So the first 10 days or so, right?
Can I interrupt you for a second though, Luke?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the first 12 days of the war, do you not believe that this is not that 12? Do you not believe that this is more like 629 days, you mentioned earlier, Jeremy? 629 days without what
we'll call it the 12-day battle.
Right. But I'm saying that the build up to this, the lives that were lost in Gaza,
I don't think we should let it go by without saying 7 IDF soldiers were killed in Gaza yesterday. So it's a little bit easy to forget that there's still a war waging in Gaza.
I don't separate, and I'd be great to be corrected on this, but me personally, I don't separate the proxy from the head. Like Iran fueled and funded this war in Gaza. Israel's been fighting Iran since October 7th. You say directly.
Here's a question. Maybe this is a question. If Israel and let's say if we'd gone to total surrender in Iran, would there be a war waging in Gaza right now? Meaning, if Trump had not stopped and declared a ceasefire and forced Israel to turn their planes around, or supposedly anyways, and they had gone to total surrender in Iran, taking out the head of the snake, would there be a war waging in Gaza with Hamas right now?
I don't think so. I think severing the head of the jihadist snake, every other bit of it will just wilt and fall away, especially if we follow through and allow the paradigm shifts in our mind to shift, and we're flexible enough to see that, like, what is now preventing us from building the temple on the Temple Mount? There's nothing preventing us. And not only that, the jihad wilting away like that, they may even help us when they see that we're actually here doing the mission of the Jewish people. One can argue and say this isn't just the 12-day war or the 629-day, it's the 2,113,091-day war since the Garden of Eden. That's what this is, like the war going all the way back since the beginning of time, the war against darkness and evil in the world. And that's what we're trying to bring the world to a state of perfection. And that's why I feel like Trump is almost a comical character to use at this time, because it just seems like it's whatever whim. They said, are you going to negotiate with Iran? He's like, I'm not in the mood to negotiate. Whatever his mood is.
Is it a fair assessment to say that it's like every day it's like a 50-50 chance of what Trump's going to do next?
Yeah.
Because that's how I literally feel.
What
side of the bed did he
Is everybody in agreement here that you don't believe the war's over?
I don't think the war is over.
Yeah.
How could the war be over? Meaning we still have the head of the snake that's still in charge.
Well, he also Yemen.
Is everybody in agreement here that it could be a matter of days and weeks?
It could be. I think it's going to be more a matter of months.
I feel like Trump. It's like 50.
I mean, the sages of Israel, there's all sorts of things circulating. In the Talmud, it says that that the West will conquer Persia, and there will be 9 months, and then there will be another war. I feel like I've lost too much credibility with my off predictions that I don't know. But they say that, possibly 9 months. But how could the war be over if the morning after the war is over, we lose 7 precious soldiers the next morning? That to me was a wake up.
Yeah, the war's
a wake up. And also, the minute Israel agreed to the ceasefire, and then a direct hit in Beersheba, and we lose these beautiful, wonderful,
One of the worst, I think.
It was the worst hit. I felt like our protection, divine protection, had been removed. God is like saying, "Oh, you want to put now your faith in America? B-2 bombers and Trump? Okay, I'm going to now step back if you want to replace me with him." And that's what we get. Maybe that's off, but that was a feeling and intuition that I had.
The victory parade in Iran was proof that the war is not over. They're still going to fight. They're still going to battle. And it's like, maybe, I don't know, maybe the next day, maybe 9 months, but we've definitely just kicked the can down the road. Meaning, it definitely in years from now, they're going to pursue nuclear weapons once again.
Well, Russia's already saying they're going to like help Iran start their nuclear program again, right?
Or they could someone could just send them a nuke.
Yeah.
A nuke. One nuke. That's all that's needed to bring the whole world into a place of total nuclear fallout. Like that's it. So if that's why the problem isn't their uranium stockpiles, like Jeremy said. The problem is the Ayatollah himself, Khamenei, Haman, Amalek, that evil in the world. That's what our enemy is. And until we're able to actually define that and see it through, the war is not over.
Yeah, there's also so much confusion. The woke right was saying, oh my gosh, if America gets involved, there'll be sleeper cells in the United States that are like activated and all sort of thing. To be afraid or terrified that there are sleeper cells that will attack Americans, but then not be afraid of Iran actually having a nuclear bomb is totally irrational and insane. It's like that once we don't go to the root of the ideology or the theology that's behind it, then this war will never end. But what's happening now, like what you said, is that within the woke right, replacement theology is really growing. I just saw a picture, I want to show it to you right now, of a priest in Sorrento, Italy. Check this out. So here you see this priest in
He's a Catholic
Italy,
priest.
a Catholic priest, which is the root of replacement theology. And in his priestly garb, he's saying, my garb, my religion is this Palestinian flag.
You know, in some ways, it's just a political manifestation of the different theological garb that he normally wears. Because what is the priest's garments that he wears from the head covering to everything else? It is an exact parallel to the high priest in the temple. Because in their minds, they did that intentionally because now they're the new Israel and the Pope is the new high priest of Israel. And so all of the commandments that were given to the high priest in the temple on what to wear, he's the new high priest. You know, and so the political manifestation of that replacement theology is the Palestinian flag. So it's just completing his wardrobe.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's podcast. But Israel just faced 12 days of war with Iran, and they're in an ongoing war. Just hit 629 days of war with Hamas. Just yesterday, 7 IDF soldiers were killed in the Gaza Strip. This entire conflict, still ongoing, has left many families in Israel in severe poverty. Right now, many, unfortunately, are trapped in the chains of poverty. Ma'ir Panim is a trusted organization that has helped hundreds of thousands of Israeli citizens for years, including widows, orphans, single mothers, soldiers, and Holocaust survivors. But right now, more than ever, they need our help to keep their amazing organization going strong. During this ongoing crisis that Israel's going through, imagine that you can touch the lives of Israelis directly by providing a safe refuge, warm meals, critical supplies. Your generosity reminds the people of Israel that they are not forgotten, especially during these extremely difficult times. You know, thousands of people have been displaced in Israel because of the recent conflict with Iran. Many are homeless because of missile strikes, ballistic missiles from Iran. Millions of people are under enormous stress. People have been running to bomb shelters just until a few nights ago, running to bomb shelters multiple times every single night. The people of Israel need us right now more than ever, and this is a way you can help them go through these hard times. Visit Israel-donate.org or click the link directly in the description below to stand with Israel today and make a real difference. Israel-donate.org, or it's a lot easier to just click that link in the description below. Stand with Israel, make a difference today. Now, back to the rest of today's podcast.
I was just reading the Torah portion for this week, and there was a big showdown with the people who tried to replace the proper priesthood, and it actually ended up where they got swallowed, right? In that story. I wonder if you touch God in this kind of way, right? Are we on that? Am I reading the right Torah portion right now?
Yes, absolutely.
If you touch, if someone wants to come in and touch like the apple of God's eye, as the Bible is very clear about the Jewish people, and try to change what he's doing in a very cynical, you know, you're trying to take away this holiness of Israel from that perspective, boy, are you dealing with fire. And maybe just the ground will open up. I mean, I'm not going to say
No, I've seen
God's
clips,
going to
yeah.
do that in this kind of time frame. I don't know the godliness of our world right now.
I wouldn't be. I'm not going to be
maybe
shocked
God will start interacting.
if I see a lightning strike hit. I mean, I saw a clip of a pastor this week literally preaching from one random verse in the New Testament, justifying why replacement theology is valid, but also justifying why the Jewish people have been persecuted for 2,000 years. Literally like ranting against the Jewish people and against Israel, like complete Jew hatred and anti-Semitism, justifying from the New Testament. Like, and that's just an example of what we're seeing from not just the woke right, but like supposed Christians, whether they're Catholics or they're Protestants.
We saw the United Nations. I forgot who it was in the United Nations. He couldn't help himself from saying, recognize Israel, recognize Israel.
Oh,
and
that was
someone
hilarious.
had to come to him and he's like, oh, let's play that.
Yeah, we should definitely play that clip because, yeah, he was trying to say we have to recognize Palestine, and aid had to come up to him after he said recognize Israel 3 times.
It was exactly Bil'am, the prophet, that came at the advisement of Barak, the evil king, and said, please curse Israel. And every time he opened his mouth, it was a blessing.
Check this clip out.
Let me give a short and simple, immediate answer. Recognise the State of Israel. I would have hoped that today Australia, Canada, New Zealand and the United Kingdom had joined its partner statement maker, Norway, in announcing recognition of the State of Israel. And I would have hoped that France would do the same. It's said that recognising Israel rewards Hamas terrorism. The opposite. Sorry? I'm sorry.
Okay, so just to kind of dwell on the growing anti-Semitism, not only in the United States but around the world, the let's call it the woke right, for lack of a better term, right, for right now, whether they're supposed Christians or Catholics or just supposed conservative commentators. Like, I was pretty aghast at the rhetoric that's come out in the last couple of weeks. People literally saying that, you know, we're entering World War. If the United States gets involved with Iran, we'll be entering World War III. People claiming thousands of American soldiers will die, will be killed. You know, military bases all across the world in the Middle East will be attacked.
And Israel's going to be to blame.
And Israel will be to blame for everything. Also, like, the rhetoric that Israel controls America and controls the American administration is just overwhelming. And all of that has led into an overwhelming amount of Jew hatred, which is a much clearer term for anti-Semitism. Like, I'm just tired of using the word anti-Semitism anymore because people literally hate Jews and hate the nation of Israel with a vengeance.
Right, which is why it was so interesting. I went to Tucker Carlson's Twitter immediately after the attack. Because if there's anyone that has been blowing this, sounding the shofar that this is going to be the end of America, tens of billions of dollars and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and then literally not one downed B2, not one soldier even hurt, not a hangnail on a soldier in the American army, and this massive thing. So his first words were, thank God. I'm like, okay, good for you, Tucker. Second words were, and good for you, President Trump, for getting that ceasefire. That's the last thing Mark Levin wanted. Mark Levin, of course, of Fox News, the Jew. And that's just his way of saying that's the last thing the Jews wanted.
Right.
Right. And so he's still going down that path of saying that this is about the Jews and this is the Jews wanted to bring America into this. And thank God it happened that way. But it doesn't change the way he thinks and sees the picture at all.
Can I tell you what's so funny about these people? What's so funny about them is they're saying, oh, no, Israel's been replaced. Israel's not important. Israel's just an irrelevant issue. And yet all of world history and all of the spotlight is on Israel and the Jews, and everyone's talking about it. Are they replaced? Are they not replaced? No, they're just, they're the ones that control America. And it's like, well, listen, what they're doing is they're just proving that they are the center stage of this, like the theater of redemption is the land of Israel. And as their all eyes are on Israel, they're just proving that we haven't been replaced and that the redemption is unfolding through us. And whether they are from the right or from the left or anti or pro, they're just showing that Israel is the center stage.
Yeah, and you know, there's a saying that I've always tried to live by about intellectual honesty. When an honest man learns that he's mistaken, he either ceases being honest or he ceases being mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if Tucker Carlson was really an intellectually honest, God-fearing person, then it would be okay for him to be mistaken and to say, you know what, wow, This is different. Maybe I had a bad read on this. Maybe I should be looking at this differently. But instead, his heart's desire is to continue to go this way for deeper spiritual reasons.
I think it's important to note, like, we're seeing growing voices in the Jewish world, in the supposed Christian world, that are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic and blaming Israel for everything. But we're also seeing growing voices on the opposite side, and they're becoming clear. And I'm really starting to appreciate the very clear voices, the Ben Shapiro's, the Mark Levins, the Glenn Becks, and pastors too. I saw something from a pastor that he literally wrote a letter to his congregation, and he said, if you are going to align yourself with anything that is anti-Zionist, if you're going to get in any of these conspiracy theories, get into any Jew hatred, he said, please stop coming to my church and please stop associating with anybody in my congregation. And I appreciated somebody that has the strength and the clarity. And I think I would just say that for our audience is listen to the voices of clarity. Because I'm also noticing the guys on the new woke right side, whether they're Jewish like Dave Smith or whether they're Christian, supposed Christian like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, they're getting more confusing by the day, and they're going deeper and deeper into the conspiracies and the rabbit holes and it gets weirder by the day. And I think that either you go down the hole with them and you get delusional and you get like fogged over to where you can't even hear a voice of truth anymore, or you reject it and you go to the voice of clarity. And I think that's really important for people to call out and to recognize and say, like, who is speaking truth clearly, who is founded on principles of the Bible, who is speaking facts and truth, and like it's separating. And I think it's important people make that decision.
So I want to share my thoughts on that. There really is only one truth that ultimately the world is going to be able to wrap their mind around. Because with AI and fake videos and conspiracy theories and who knows what's really going on. I mean, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu confused the whole world.
Yeah.
I mean, they shocked everyone because all of the fake news and the tweets that are confusing people and the bee bombers are coming this way, but they're really coming that way. Just like one confusion after the next. And so what are people going to hold on to? There is a tradition that the sin of the spies was the worst sin ever committed. Speaking ill of the land of Israel and not wanting to go into the land.
Wow.
And that doesn't really make any sense. I mean, that was the beginning of the 9th of Av. That's the same day that the first temple was destroyed. The second temple was destroyed. That was the beginning of the disengagement from Gaza that really led to this war to begin with. Yep. The 9th of Av is the worst day. Why would not wanting to go into the land of Israel and the evil speech about the land, why would that be the worst sin possible? So most people think like, listen, God loves the land. You speak ill of the land, and that's just the worst sin possible. But there's something much deeper than that. The only covenant that God made with Israel, the only truth that we will be able to wrap our minds around with is, are the people of Israel fulfilling God's promise in the land? That's why I brought you out of Egypt, just so that you would go in the land. You don't want to go in the land now, so what are you doing here? All right, fine, stay in the desert. The only purpose, the only mission the people of Israel had was to inherit the promised land. And as long as the Jews are in the promised land, secure and safe, anti-Semitism will disappear. Replacement theology will disappear because the one promise given to Israel is being fulfilled. That's why it's so important that you're here in Samaria, that we're in Judea. The promised land needs to be settled, needs to be sovereign under Israel's control. And then we put the whole comment to rest. It was the gravest sin because God's name and God's glory can't really be lifted up with confusion. And right now, because we haven't taken out Hamani, because we haven't taken out Gaza, we're letting the world just slip into confusion and conspiracy theories. So really, the only way to dispel the lies is by Israel inheriting the land. It's all about the land. That's why the 9th of Av was all about the land.
I feel like the nations like innately know all of that somehow. Because what are they fighting? What is Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Steve Bannon? What are they even? Because they're going religious here against a people group. Is Bibi? We spoke about it. He did some prayers, but he's not known for being like a religious leader. Israel is in a transition, actually we spoke about, of moving to be more religious, but they're fighting a kind of a Western civilization in the Middle East. Like technically, if you were just to be technical, non-spiritual. Doesn't make any sense in the world why they would be doing that, except for they're connecting to a spiritual something deeper that they're it's something much, much deeper. It makes zero sense that they'd be fighting this Western civilization that is their value systems as far as like godliness. America has appreciation for that. They don't align with the Islamic regimes around the world. That's not something that Americans, even Tucker Carlson, technically as an American, should appreciate. He should appreciate Israel's heritage and things. This does make zero sense until you boil it down to what are they attacking Israel for? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I would sit down with Tucker Carlson and say, as a believer in God that you say, Tucker, and a believer in the Bible, when it says, and I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant. Tucker, is God a liar? Is he lying when he says, for the Lord will not cast off his people, nor will he forsake his inheritance? Is he lying, Tucker? That's what this comes down to.
No, he would just say he changed his mind.
He changed his mind.
That's the Old Testament.
no longer-
Ari, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
he's calling
Steve
God a
Bannon
liar.
literally did a whole thing
Am
on
I
that.
a man that I should change my mind? Right? God does not. He's not a changer of his mind.
No, we all agree that, but that's
Here's
not
what
what
we
they
tell-
literally say. That's why they call it the New Testament.
Here's
That's
what we tell
literally Steve Bannon
Christians.
said that
What
on
we
his
tell
show.
Christians is if God changed his mind because the Jewish people, broke the Torah or didn't follow God's commandments, and he went to Christianity instead and established a new covenant with him. If God did that, then Christianity should be really scared because Christianity is not largely following God's commandments today, and like Christianity should be very nervous. If God could break his covenant with the Jewish people, like why do they think
better than that,
that
Luke.
they
They
have
should-
any chance
they
of
should convert to-
having
they
like a
could-
relationship
By
with
the way,
God?
I can understand the Tucker Carlsons of the world if you're not humble enough to say my ways are not God's ways, my mind is not his mind. Because if my mind was God's and I read the Bible, which could not have been written by a Jew, because if a Jew wrote the Bible, every single page that you turn is another rebellion, another stiff-necked people, another golden calf, more idolatry, more rebellion. Why did you let? Let's go back to Egypt. Yet, after all of that, we get to hear behind the scenes when God is talking to the evil prophet Bilam, and he says, "This is my nation Israel. This is my child. This is who I love." God loves us regardless of our rebellions and our stiff-neckedness. So don't project your conditional love on God's unconditional love. You can't wrap your mind around it.
Well, I think it's even bigger than that. Look at the history. Look at the Ottomans to the Turks to the all the empires that have risen against Israel, all the way back to the time of ancient empires of Greece and Rome and all. You just name all throughout history.
Just go to Egypt if you want to go all the way
Egypt.
back.
I mean, come on. Every single empire, where are they? They fell.
They're gone.
They fell based on
That's what I'm like. Just look at history.
The relationship with
That's why it's good that
Israel.
you're saying that, because when I hear one of the main arguments that he even said in the argument with Ted Cruz, in the debate, he said, "What makes you think that these Jews in Israel now are those Jews?"
Right.
That's the big thing that everybody's throwing out. They're not those Jews. They're not really the children of Israel. Yeah, maybe God didn't, give up on the children of Israel. He's true to his covenant, but that's not them. Well, if it's not us, then why are all of the ludicrous, absurd, irrational prophecies that all of the chances are against, it's happening to us?
I feel like we've outlined the miracles of what we just lived through, but I don't know if we emphasized it enough. It was
I actually wanted to
literally
talk about that too,
I
yeah.
feel like we went through almost like a Red Sea experience here in Israel. Do you feel that way, Jeremy? Like
Totally.
Like I was looking up numbers. How many?
Can
how
I
many
mention-
rockets
because I got
normally
off,
people get killed when
I
send
got off
rockets
the boat
over it?
in Haifa, and the GPS are all jammed up there. Sam's behind the camera. He was driving us home. So anyways, we ended up driving through downtown Haifa trying to get back on the main highway because there's no GPS. We drove right past the buildings that had a direct hit like a few hours before that. And I was like in awe of how much destruction these ballistic missiles can cause. And I don't think people understand because they're used to hearing about like rockets from Gaza. And these rockets from Gaza compared to what Iran has been shooting are like little homemade rocket launchers that, they just like lob them over and hope they land on something. These ballistic missiles are taking out apartment buildings. Direct hit in Beersheba, multiple people were killed, like hundreds of people injured. When I saw like how much destruction one missile could cause in Haifa, the only thing I could think about is like, why are there not thousands of people killed in Israel as a result of the last 12 days and the hundreds of ballistic missiles that Iran shot over?
I can't help but to think when I used to feel firmly that the Jews of the diaspora that do not hear the calling, that do not see it's time to return to the land, God forbid, I feared that when the gates shut, they will suffer because in their minds, they're in the safer place.
safe.
I've never seen a greater discrepancy between the Caleb and Joshua's and the 10 spies as I did during my time there. Because there were Jews there that were staying there that were Caleb's and Joshua's, couldn't sleep at night. Their hearts are in Israel. All they want to do is to return, but they can't for whatever reason. You can be there and be a Caleb and Joshua that's stuck there, okay? But so many of them were like, you're trying to get back? Why don't you bring your family here? Like, yeah, I love Israel. I'll go to Israel. Like when this blows over and it's not so dangerous there, I'll go for my vacation. You know, but they were like truly in a place of complacency and feeling safer there. And you know, that's why you look at Dave Smith, for example, and these Jews, and you're like, what is keeping them going? What is fueling Dave Smith? It's not replacement theology. And I would say it's the culmination of thousands of years of this persecution and hatred for being Jews, that it comes up again and again and again, that's already hardwired into the mind of a Jew that that's coming. And so Dave Smith says, if I turn against them, then I'll be the token Jew that's able to say all the things that they can't say because it's too Jew-hating and anti-Semitic, and I will be somehow saved. I will be, when they turn against the Jews, it's not going to be me because I'm the good Jew. I'm on their side. There's that type
didn't work so well in World War
it didn't. But Zohar Mamdani, right? You know who this guy is?
Yeah.
Zohran Mamdani, that is the soon-to-be mayor of New York, that said Bibi would be arrested if he comes to New York, right? That said that that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. That is literally a terror supporter. Who voted him in? Jews.
Yeah.
So many like hipster Jews that want to prove that they're not Israel first. Totally not. They're hipster New Yorkers. That's their identity way before any sort of Jewish Israel identity. So great and deep is their desperate desire to prove that they're not Israel firsters. And it's this fear of being accused of dual loyalty, as we've learned, that's going to attract that accusation because they're digging their own graves without even realizing it.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And again, like I think we just have to dwell on the miracle of God's protection on the land of Israel.
And there's no doubt that Israel is a safer place.
One missile destroying an apartment building. Like how many people live in an average apartment building? Hundreds.
Yeah.
Like there should have been hundreds of people killed in every direct strike that hit a building. And how many
Every
people?
assessment was saying 5,000 to 10,000 people.
And how many
should have
people were
died.
killed? 28, right?
Statistically, it doesn't make any sense.
No, yeah.
That's actually what I was going to say. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm interrupting too much and I apologize. But I just remembered where I was going with that. I used to fear that the Jews of the exile were going to suffer truly for not coming here. But I think the suffering may be is that when such a great salvation happens and the Jews of the land of Israel feel it in their bones and they experienced it in the salvation and the joy and the gratitude and the dancing in the streets and the tears, the Jews of the exile are going to be, yeah, that's cool that happened, but they didn't experience it. The punishment is that they're not here.
Yeah.
The punishment is that they didn't experience what you experienced, the Red Sea.
Oh, it was miraculous.
You were saying, so how was that?
No, just when you look up and you see these iron domes, and Jeremy, I learned from you that it's not technology.
Or when
it's
you
the
walk
hand
out of
God
a bomb
at work
shelter
through
and
people.
Pick up this tank like down here.
Yeah, when you walk outside and you see this massive piece of shrapnel and you realize we were saved. We were it was salvation for us. Like by the amount of missiles, Jeremy, when you walked outside your house, just like me, the sky was completely full. It was like hundreds.
You know, I'll tell you what Tehillah told me at nighttime. You know, it looks like little fire that just keeps on exploding.
I heard her say
in the daytime, it's like little puffs of smoke. It's like, well, that's exactly what we had in the Bible. We had clouds of day, clouds of glory protecting us, and then the pillar of fire at night. And that's literally what we're living through right now. We have these pillars of fire that are like protecting us. And it's kind of hard to look a miracle directly in the eye because we're like living within it. And now you can understand. They had just seen the splitting of the sea. And then 3 days later, they're complaining about the water. It's like Israel is like within a miracle. It's hard to see the miracle, but to recognize it, it's undeniable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm still in awe of what I witnessed here. And it's not the first time. It was back in October, and it was back in April
2024.
And it's like the miracles continue. And in those attacks, 0 casualties. Like those first April attack and the October attack of 2024, except for the terrorist in Jericho. That's godly. These it's just we're living in biblical times, and I feel like if there was a scribe taking note right now, it's like the pages of the
More
Bible.
pages of the Bible being written.
Somebody needs to be noting this, Jeremy. I don't know if you have somebody.
What I feel like at the 6-day war, we had done so much in 6 days, and then we gave the keys to the Temple Mount back to the Arabs in order to kind of give them that like saving face.
Almost feels similar.
And we've done
moment.
the same exact thing now. Like we were at the very edge of actually like squashing the enemy and establishing a new Middle East.
Just a signature Saul move, right?
But and I'm just wondering though if like Israel is still going to work in some ways behind the scenes, not to go just to somehow figure out a way to take down this regime, because otherwise in 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we'll be right back in the same position.
I got to say, you just said, Jeremy, you got to have someone writing this down, right? Someone is taking note of this.
AI,
and I'll just say,
right?
someone is taking note of this. The prophet Malachi said in chapter 3, "Then those who feared the Lord spoke with one another, and the Lord listened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for those who feared the Lord and esteemed his name." Jeremy always says this, and it's so true. Why was the Bible full of stories? You want to say this, Jeremy? You articulate it so much better.
Well, why is the Bible one long story? It's not full of stories, but it's actually one narrative. Starts with Adam and Eve, and then Noah, and then Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They go down to Egypt. They come out of Egypt. They travel through the desert. They come into the land. They build a temple. Nebuchadnezzar destroys the temple. The whole Bible is a story. And the reason is it's training us, for all the replacement theologians that are out there, it's training everyone to realize, oh, the story isn't complete yet. That we right now are the next chapter in the story of the Bible. And so here we are, we're living it.
And it's up to us to decide who we want to be, what role we want to play.
If we see ourselves as characters within that story, we can literally author ourselves within that story to be whoever we want. That's right. And that's really the gift that God has given us, to participate within the miracles, not to just witness them.
When the nation returned after Cyrus to the land of Israel to build the temple, do we want to be those Jews that came back to have one sword in their hand fighting the enemies, the other building the temple? Or do we want to be those that stayed in Babylonia and said, oh, I'm really good here?
Prime Minister Netanyahu said, just as Cyrus had freed the Jews to come back to the land, we're now going to free the Persian people. And I thought that was such a beautiful positioning. And
like we're returning a favor.
But we didn't free the Persian people. They're still under the regime.
Well, they could have also, I don't know. I don't want to judge because I don't know. It's hard to be under 46 years of brutal regime and then to judge them for not rising up.
I have a big question, and I don't know if this is right or not. But you know how everybody says the politically correct thing to say is the Gazans, they want to be, most of the Gazans are good people. People say this outside of this group. They're good people. They want what's right. And it's just these Hamas people that are throwing it over. We know that's so far from the truth. I don't know if there's none in Gaza that we've come up with yet that have tried to join and help Israel find the hostages.
There's not even one person on TikTok or on Twitter that's ever said,
nobody.
October 7th, that was wrong.
That was wrong. That we shouldn't have done that. So we know that's false. But what's going on in Iran? We're hearing the Iranian people, they're amazing. Is it this? I mean, okay, we know that proxy group of Iran is evil, and it's embedded, and it's fully rotten what they've done in their proxies. Is what's going on in Iran really? I don't know. I'm just pushing back on it because, I'm not there. I don't see it like I see Gaza close by. But my big question is this another kind of like one of those things where we just want to see good in people? We want to believe that it's good.
The statistics that I've heard. Oh, you've heard?
No, I was just going to say this: the statistical chance is higher because you got 90 million versus 2 million.
No, but there are stats within the country that it's really 20, 40, 40. 20% are actually proactively for the Ayatollah regime. 40% want the regime to be deposed, not for ideological reasons that they don't agree with it, but just because of the damage it's wreaking on the devastation of the country. But they will still want some sort of Ayatollah fundamentalist Jew-hating regime. And 40% are actually ideologically against it. That's what I've heard. I can't confirm that, but I've heard that from a number of sources already. So that says something. But again, like we saw under Obama, when they really did try to overthrow, you remember, I'll never forget, I was like a kid, maybe not a kid, but I was much younger, and I saw some sweet girl that was there at this anti-government protest, and she was shot by a sniper in the heart, and her eyes were open, and do you remember that?
No.
I don't remember that.
Okay, well, that made a very profound impact on me, and Obama didn't get involved. He didn't try to foment.
No, I think that's the reality. Is that everybody's talking about regime change. I think it has to come from within. Like if they truly want regime change, it has to come from within.
But we can help.
I had a thought. Maybe we go back to the biblical story. If we go back to the times of Esther and the story of Haman, there were like the king ended up empowering the Jewish people to fight back against their enemies. But what do we see from the biblical story? How many of the people were against the Jews? How many were for? I'm just trying to think. Like what does the Bible say about the? And also, is there prophecy about our Persia in the future?
Well,
because the Bible has a lot to say about different Middle Eastern countries. Some, not so great. Some do have a future.
So Jeremy taught me this. So Jeremy, if I misquote you on this, I want you to take it from here. But when this actually happened in the book of Esther and the Jews were empowered to take their swords and to fight back, there was a massive wave of Persians that were mityahed that became wanted to really convert to Judaism.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Become more Judaized. Why? Because when you see the Spirit of God, the power of God, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the jihadists here in Israel, I feel a difference. I'm not sure if I'm projecting it out or it's real, but I feel like there's going to be a lot less stones thrown at cars as we're driving by right now. Like the jihad has had a serious, massive knockout blow. Maybe it wasn't decapitated.
I don't know if it was hard enough, because when those rockets were going off, I don't know about you, Jeremy, if you have Arab villages as close as I do, but when I was outside, right when the sirens would go off and the rockets would start flying, I would literally hear chants from the Arab villages yelling Allah Akbar and screaming and yelling. They're all run outside. All the Jews are running for shelter. All the Arabs are running outside to celebrate in the streets.
Well, that's why it's so important what Israel does, because Allah didn't seem very Akbar in Iran when we started taking out all of their military, when we destroyed all of their infrastructure. That's the only way to actually prove them wrong, is reality itself, because then Allah is either with the Jews or Allah isn't very Akbar, and the God of Israel is the God of the world.
Unfortunately, if they're having marches of victory through downtown Iran,
I don't think
it's now a question in their minds.
Oh, can I tell you this? Because I was with a Chinese guy at the port while I was waiting to pick up the guys the other day at the boat port. And this Chinese guy told me, he said, hey, you know what? In China, he said, all the news is that Israel is destroyed. Because it's
really?
He said all the news in China, because they don't have open platforms. He said everybody's saying that the Iranians have smashed Israel. Israel is rubble. Israel's finished. It's done.
Not surprised.
I'm like, whoa. Now you got one of the largest population centers of the world believes that Israel's done.
Well, if that's the news in China, I would say probably
other Arab countries is also picking that.
Maybe like Russia, North Korea,
I mean, that was big.
That's why everybody was saying on a practical level, I was so upset when Trump started giving orders and sort of making Israel the little brother. I'm upset. F, these guys don't know what the F they're doing. Everyone's like, behind the scenes, Trump and Bibi worked this out, and this is just a show and it's smoke and mirrors. I'm like, even if that's true, I don't care, because this is the point of it.
Yeah.
The point of it isn't the practical thing that's happening. The point is the God of Israel being sanctified and magnified and glorified, or is he being demeaned? And even if it's a smoke and mirror show, to have Israel, reprimanded in such a demeaning way is missing the whole point.
But even when we take God and just talk about Israel acted totally independently on their own. They crushed Iran within 24 hours. We dominated the air, and we did that all on our own with the help of God. All of a sudden, Trump is like, turn your planes back around. You're not really alone. I'm the one that's really in charge. And that sort of lowered Israel's esteem.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen from here? I think we'll have to...
I was going to say, I wanted the only thing we didn't cover with Trump is now his, I don't know if it's like his way of making up or something, but did you see this statement he put out about Bibi? Or is he also trying to be the daddy to Bibi like he is to
I think he's also
all of NATO?
Understanding that Bibi's legacy regarding this war and his legacy regarding this war are fundamentally intertwined. And so the fact that Bibi, the New York Times and everybody's calling into question who really won this war. I just saw a Twitter Twitter thing yesterday, the day after the war, who really won the war, Iran or Israel? And I voted, of course, Israel. And then you see the results, and 52% said Iran.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like,
Really?
what is going on? So then, and so you look, and someone said that has to be bots, or that has to be whatever.
No,
bots
just
or
Chinese
no bots.
people. If that's all that they're
That's what
thinking,
they're hearing. They
that's all
could
that they
be.
know.
Right.
It literally
So
could be legit what they think.
I mean, I remember the U.S.-Iraq war. Iraq was saying, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning. As Iraq is winning, as it's getting closer and closer and closer to Baghdad. Each one of these massive victories is bringing the American army closer to Baghdad. Hussein is there with his neck. We won! And like that's like the way that they present it. We need to be able to dispel all doubt in the eyes of the nation of the world that we won this war, not us.
Yeah.
Not us, but the God of Israel through the nation of Israel and the Israeli army that he used as a sword in his hand.
Yeah.
And that is the only narrative.
So let me just read a couple excerpts from this. And for people who don't know, like the ceasefire happens with Iran, and literally Bibi is called into court like a couple days later because he has this ongoing multi-year court case accusing him of giving favorable media coverage to one of the media networks and also like taking some cigars and pink champagne or something like that, which, I mean, it's kind of funny because Trump is like taking this $400 million plane from Qatar, and Bibi like supposedly took some cigars or something, which I don't think he even smoked. So anyways, like he's got this ongoing just wild court case. And if you read Bibi's autobiography, like his entire career, every few years he's been attacked with something like this, some like weird court case or lawsuit or something that has like nothing to do with anything serious. It's always just like a weird like sidebar kind of thing. So same thing's happening to him again. And Trump posts this on Truth Social. I'll just read a couple of the things from it. He says, Bibi Netanyahu was a warrior like perhaps no other warrior in the history of Israel, and the result was something that nobody thought was possible, a complete elimination of potentially one of the biggest and most powerful nuclear weapons anywhere in the world, and it was going to happen soon. We were fighting literally for the survival of Israel, and there's nobody in Israel's history that fought harder or more competently than Bibi Netanyahu. And then he goes, and now I'm hearing he's being called back into court, and he goes, quote, this witch hunt for a man who was given so much is unthinkable to me. Bibi Netanyahu's trial should be canceled immediately, all caps, Trump style, or a pardon given to a great hero who has done so much for the state of Israel. This travesty of justice cannot be allowed. So it's very interesting that like the day after Trump literally goes, like drops an F-bomb on Bibi and Israel, then he like flips the script and now he's praising Bibi. And it's interesting because like you said, maybe this is something I hadn't thought of before. Like literally books are going to be written about this. And like you said, Trump and Bibi's legacy is definitely going to be intertwined in those history books.
And not only that, there's a really practical ramification. I remember early in the Army when I was in reserves, there was a time Jeremy and I showed up late and we had these heavy bags and we showed up to reserve duty. And I went through the front gate of the base, which I wasn't allowed to do. And then the head officer came and started screaming at me in Hebrew. And I responded, hey, I just want to let you, in English, I responded, and I saw immediately his demeanor changed. Why? Because there's deep in the psychological programming of Israelis, the English language is like, whoa, okay, all right, let's talk about this, right? For Trump to say that, it actually puts some real fear of God in the hearts of the Praklitud, of the
justice system.
The justice system. Those that are putting Bibi on trial. Like that could really change to have the president of the United States that just did such a thing, because it almost reminds me of Moses. It brings a vehicle through which God brings the nation of Israel out of slavery, and the Jews are like, stone him! Right? Yeah. How many times did that happen? And so like this is a little bit of what we're seeing here. It's not the nation. I think the nation is also enraged that right after this unbelievable act of courage and faith, next day he's right back on trial again for the cigars. It's absurd. It's absurd.
I think it's all in the hands of God in the sense of drawing the nation again. It's making this left regime in Israel that's tried to claw its way in through this culture that's not godless. The Jewish people are just not. They have a deep history, and it's been like a war against God and the connection of the people, and it's really losing, and it's getting almost to the point where it's getting desperate for its survival now, and it's making these kind of mistakes that are causing the people just to be like, we're done with this.
Well,
we are a nation of God.
Real opportunity now for Israel.
Yeah.
Because it seems like we only repent when we're under rocket fire. And that's like the pattern of the Bible is that like they'll send in the Philistines and then, we're oppressed. Right. And then we reach out to God. So right now, there's a real opportunity, if there is like a period of quiet now, for there to be a real spiritual revival from a place of abundance, from a place of peace. That would be just like the Israelis rectified the sin of the spies by rushing to get back in the middle of a war when the original spies, they didn't want to go into the land at all. So right now, to actually, from a place of strength, from a place of peace and prosperity, to actually return to our source and return to God. There's a real opportunity to actually make that a final rectification. And maybe that's what we're about to witness now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. I know we're going kind of long today. Hopefully you guys don't mind. Two things I wanted to mention as we're wrapping up. And one, this was to your point earlier, Jeremy. You said maybe there's something going on behind the scenes where Israel's still going to continue this war against Iran and win the war. Interesting announcement this week is David Barnea, who's the head of the Mossad, revealed that Israel has had hundreds of agents deep inside Iranian territory during the height of the conflict, probably for years. And he said literally they were one of the key factors in blindsiding the regime and shifting the balance from day one. And he says, quote, "We carried out every precise move necessary, waiting for the perfect moment. We knew the stakes. We knew history was watching." So I would assume probably still there. And that could be an interesting factor in this. I think Israel has they've always waged their wars very carefully. There's always things going on behind the scenes. And when they go public, it's very calculated. So I think we can always guarantee that Israel always has something going on behind the scenes. And hopefully Bibi and the government has the strength to continue cutting off the head of the snake. So
Amen.
We can pray and hope for that, right? The second thing I want to end with is this announcement about the Abraham Accords, which I think is very interesting. And I want to play this clip from Steve Witkoff and just hear you guys' reaction to this. This was a clip this week. Watch this.
One of the president's key objectives is that the Abraham Accords be expanded, that more countries come into it, and we are working on that on my team and in coordination with the Secretary of State and the entire State Department. And we think we're going to have some pretty big announcements on countries that are now coming into the Abraham Peace Accords. And we're hoping for normalization across an array of countries that maybe people would have never contemplated would come in. So we're excited for that prospect. That will also be a stabilizer in the Middle East.
So I want to hear y'all's reaction. I'm personally not a very good predictor or someone that predicts prophecy or anything like that. I'm always like a very kind of factual, just look at what's going on in front of me. And right now, talking about, is the war over? Is the war going to continue? And what's Trump going to do next? It literally feels like, how did he roll out of bed that day? I kind of could see 50-50. 50-50, World War III breaks out on the one hand, the war continues, more countries attack Israel. Or on the other hand, maybe a 50% chance countries join the Abraham Accords, normalization with Saudi Arabia, that kind of thing. So curious.
I think it's going to be both. Meaning, I think that there's an axis right now. There's Iran, Russia, and China, North Korea. That was clearly shown.
Yeah.
The Abraham Accords are another axis. There's another side of the good that want to bring peace and prosperity to the Middle East. And how amazing is it that that's called the covenant of Abraham? Mm-hmm. Enter into the covenant of Abraham, to the Abraham Accords. Abraham is our father. All the people that identify with Abraham are aligning together and they'll be blessed. And those that don't align with Abraham won't. And so there's the United States of America that are coordinating this. But imagine that when we talk about prophecy being fulfilled, that was the first promise given to Abraham, that he would be the father of many nations. And now these nations are lining up. I think the Abraham Accords are going to explode after this. I think there's nations that are waiting in line to align themselves with Israel.
Yeah, if we play our cards right, if we progress in the right way, if we don't allow the old paradigms to continue and we fall back into the belief that now that we show this tremendous strength, if we show love and compassion, that will be received as love and compassion rather than defeat, understanding that that's how they see the world. I think Witkoff is a perfect example. The Hebrew for Witkoff, if you read it in the Israeli newspapers, it's Vav Yud Taf Kuf Pe, Vayit Kuf, to attack. right? Which is the opposite of really what he's been before this. Before this, he was constantly negotiating with the worst actors, negotiating with genocidal jihadists that you can't negotiate with because they're genocidal jihadists. No matter what you think you're doing, it doesn't change their fundamental goal of wiping Israel off the map. But now he's saying this. Why is he saying this? Because for the same reason that the Abraham Accords will explode, because so many of the jihad of the Arab world, when they see the overwhelming power of the God of Israel, it's almost like a dog. They say, a dog could have its owner and be loyal to him, but if someone else attacked the owner and is on top, now the dog's going to be loyal to the guy that's on top. That's very much a lot of the Middle East and a lot of the world. And so now Israel is on top, regardless of what they want to claim. The world knows what just happened there. They
Definitely
know.
The Arab world knows.
The Arab world knows. And so this, if we remain on top and don't fall into that Jewish trap of being like, now let's give you the keys to the Temple Mount because we're such good friends and let's be friends, and because that's not the way they see the world. So it really has to do with what we do and not what they say.
I'll just mention one thing. I want to hear your reaction, Josh, but I just was reminded of this. Like the day before, or 2 days before Israel attacked Iran, I was in Texas and ran into another Israeli where we were both staying, and he does a lot of business in Saudi Arabia. And he was saying over the last 2 years, as he's traveled back and forth, he said behind the scenes, all of his friends in Saudi Arabia have been cheering Israel on for everything they've done. When Israel attacked Lebanon and took out Nasrallah, they're like, why have you waited so long? Everybody in Saudi Arabia does not care about the Palestinians at all, does not care about the people of Gaza. Palestinian state couldn't care less. So the reality is, you definitely, like you were saying, the Arab nations know what is going on. It's just a question of where are they going to turn publicly and what's their decision going to be.
The biggest thing that I love about the Abraham Accords being expanded is the premise of which it's set up on. It's not about Arab nations. It's not about the Arab nations. It's really about Israel and those that want to come along. Like Jeremy, you said, the whole premise of the Abraham Accords is not aligning with the Abraham of the Arabs. It's the Abraham of Israel. It's recognizing Israel. And when the Arab nation recognizes Israel, hey, join this accord. It's not the other way around.
It's the reverse
all
of
about
replacement
Israel.
theology.
It really
reverse.
is.
Why? Because it's saying that the Arabs are finally saying, wait a second, these Jews aren't European colonialist imperialists that have been transplanted there. No, this is the children of Abraham. And how do we know? Because look at the incredible promises that are being fulfilled through them and the hand of God that is with them. This is them. This is the children of Abraham. And now we're going to come together as children of Abraham.
To make that a little clear, it's not about Saudi Arabia. If this was about Saudi Arabia, it would be, everybody making peace with Saudi Arabia because they're the center point of this whole thing. No, it's about Israel and all the nations around Israel making peace with Israel. So I think it's a godly thing. I think it's amazing.
Guys, I think we could go on for another hour or 2 hours. I know a lot of people are wondering about the Israel summit, and we don't really have an announcement today. I think the only thing we can say is because the war broke out, a lot of things have changed. So if you guys are wondering and you're watching and listening, don't despair. We are, God willing, going to hold the Israel summit. The location might be a little different, and hopefully we'll be able to get all the same speakers, and you guys will have a chance to really experience the incredible beauty that the Israel Summit is going to bring from the land of Israel, from the Jewish people. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to talk about any more details because it's all very much in progress right now. So, guys, if you're enjoying the changing global events and the expanding prophetic happenings of the world right now along with us, and by the time you watch this, it could have changed again. Who knows? Let us know down in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, whether you're watching or listening, and head over to thelandofisrael.com and join Jeremy and Ari on the Land of Israel Fellowship and their network as well. I know they would love to have you guys over there. I think every Sunday, right? You guys are getting together on Zoom. So it's much more up close and personal with Jeremy and Ari and their wives and other amazing voices from the Land of Israel. Make sure to check that out at thelandofisrael.com, and we'll have that link down in the description below. Guys, God willing, we'll be back next week with more to analyze the crazy things that will for sure have happened by next week. So, but in the meantime, make sure you stop stop listening to lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in the land of Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.